There you are now, Matt. Tucked away in a cozy attic, living the dream.
That's right, away from the family.
For 1 hour, 1 hour 15.
1 hour of
1 hour of wine and guests and questions, and yeah, the chance to just chat about great wines.
What better way to spend an evening, I think. Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. Yes.
And who else better to spend it with?
Myself and 2,000 angels who are slowly streaming in. Very, very big welcome to everyone. What a beautiful day it was. I'm not sure. I saw someone saying hello from Edinburgh. I'm not sure how far the weather stretched, but I believe it was nice here. It was. I was overseas and just got back in time.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So we are having this perfect Indian summer that we hope for. And we've got 6 beautiful wines to taste tonight. So what we will do is we will let a few more people stream in, and thank you for everyone who is already jumping in and telling us where they are and what they're drinking. And as you see, you've got the chat room where you can say hello to everyone and get familiar. And there's also the Q&A over on the right-hand side. So that's where we'll take questions, and Matt and I can answer those towards the end. And something to make note of is when Matt and I think we kicked off with tasting packs, and we took on a bit of feedback in terms of like just slowing down a bit and appreciating the wines. And so whilst this may have been pegged as a 1 hour session from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., if it's okay with you, we might just run over to about 9:15. So we don't have to rush through the wines and we get to taste and talk about them. And
sounds good.
Yeah, nice one. A nice chilled evening.
Slow the pace down a bit. Yeah,
exactly. So, well, here we go. I think people, as you're coming in nice and slowly, but why don't we at least get some wine in our glasses, because it's Thursday.
That's right.
It's crackerjack. Right.
I hope everyone's feeling adventurous tonight. We're heading off the beaten track, aren't we, Ray?
We are, exactly. Yeah. Living the wild life. So just as a reminder to everyone, you probably already have opened your tasting packs. We're starting with number 1, but just to state the bleeding obvious, and excuse me if I'm dumbing this down, but for the interest of your carpet and your table, just snip the top of the pack really quite close to the seam up there. And that's all it takes, is a little snip like that. And then, well, you know how to pour a glass of wine. And so then you get it in like that. So you just need a little snip like that. And remember that when you get onto the reds. Okay, well, there's some people who are attending, and you're very welcome, who don't have the tasting packs, but you might be familiar with the wines. And if you're not, you will be by the end of this, because we'll have talked through them. So Matt, would you mind kicking us off with this first wine?
Love to, Ray. Thanks. Yeah, the wine number 1. So as I said, we're heading off the beaten track a bit tonight. That's the theory. That's the theme of the evening. Taking you perhaps a little bit out of your comfort zone, maybe suggesting some things that you might like to try if you like a certain style, you want to experiment a bit, or frankly, if you just want a bit of a change. So with the first wine, we're heading down to the Languedoc in the south of France. And we're no strangers to that part of the world. We've got plenty of wines in the portfolio from that region. We love that region for the sort of beautiful, sunny, exuberant wines that it can produce, and the value that it gives. But the first wine's from a dear winemaker friend of ours, Virgil Jolly, and it's something a bit different in terms of the varieties he uses. So this is Virgil Jolly's Buret 2020. Now, Buret is a synonym, another word for a grape variety down there, otherwise known as Terret. So Buret, Terret, the same thing. And he's put a dash of Picpoul in there as well, but it's mainly Buret. And the story really here is that Buret used to be planted heavily around this region as recently as the 80s. And then it fell out of favor and people planted, other varieties, maybe some international varieties, things like that, as tastes changed. But Virgil's really passionate about those indigenous, those old varieties. And that's exactly what this is. He's sort of regenerated, found a plot of old Buret vines, and he's passionate about this variety. So it's something a bit different. But if you like things like Pickpool, if you like some of those weightier, more rich, tropical wines, sunny wines in the south, you really should give this a go. Well, indeed, you are giving this a go, thanks to our beautiful tasting pack. So give it a go, see what you think. What do you think, Ray?
Lovely, yeah. And I like it more to know, that it's been sort of regenerated and brought back by Virgil. Yeah, you said it's in that fresh, fruity style, a bit similar to Pickpool. You said there's a little bit of Pickpool in there. And it's the kind of dish that it's a little bit like, in fact, I think it has a shell, and I think, but anyway, it just sort of talks oysters, seafood, shellfish.
Totally.
Sort of, knocking it back. And the weather is still beautiful in most parts of the country. And so there's still time to sort of, have some fresh seafood and enjoy this wine. But it's lovely. It has pointers towards a higher, I think we sell this about $8.99 or thereabouts. But when you get the long length, minerality, some people call it, it's like a sort of salty palate, and it just goes on and on and on and on, and it sort of speaks of a higher quality. And I think this is what might make this wine, and the fact that it's off the beaten track, greater value for money than people might expect. It's because it's out of love. It's not fashionable, yet it's still as great as it used to be, but it's just not in favor. It's not Sauvignon Blanc, and it's not Chardonnay. So I think there's a lot of quality, a lot of value in there, and very well made. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, Pickpool is become really, really popular. It's been a runaway success story in that part of the world, and for good reason. But sometimes it's hard to get enough Pickpool actually, for customers' thirsts, which is great problem to have. But there is something different there. There's something similar, but takes it in a different direction a bit. The other thing I think which is great about these indigenous old varieties of the regions is they're suited to grow in those areas perfectly. They haven't taken a variety from somewhere else and sort of made it grow there. This grape variety handles the heat really well. It's still only 12% alcohol, this wine, which is pretty modest for the sunshine that it receives. And it's fresh and mineral, absolutely banging combination with just simple seafood, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, spot on. So we've given a similarity towards Pickpool, flavors of maybe pomelo, grapefruit, or so a little bit of grapefruit, a little bit of underripe pineapple, but refreshing, citrus, zesty, and happy juice, I would say.
Happy juice, simple, happy, fresh, delicious. Somebody said they were drinking out of a plastic beaker. That's fine. Picnic, plastic beaker, no problem.
Well, that's it. I was just going to take this wine into the next 3 months. So you have to think of, okay, what's next? We got Halloween coming up, and you're sitting around a fire. You have your plastic beaker, knocking back the juice, and then you maybe end up at Christmas, and you got smoked salmon starters, or just those sort of nibbly bits and party wine, and the value for money. And actually, for everyone who's watching, perhaps an opportunity to introduce your friends, family to something else that they haven't heard of. Buret, I can assure you, neither Matt and I were. I don't know. Were you aware of this before Naked Days? I wasn't. Maybe you were.
I'm one of the world experts in Buret, actually. Sorry, but we'll save that for another session.
Far well read than I am.
Only joking. Yeah, not so well known.
Well, we have it. There we go. And thanks. A Boxing Day breakfast. Good call. Well, we'll move on to the next wine, and that's to not rush over this wine. Like I said, we're going to take more time on each wine, slow down, and maybe talk tasting notes and so on. But I think the next wine there's still quite a lot to talk about on the next wine. So if you don't mind, we will move to the next wine. And it's Mush Filero from, just reminding you, just up towards the top of the seam is the place to snip this. And this is from Greece. And it's an unreal value for money wine, which is not intended to be a hard sell, but at all, because while you're here, you're with us. But actually, when you think of the concentration and the flavors and the breadth and its origin, the Greek wines, they're actually not cheap. You know, maybe, okay, if you've been on holidays in Greece, they don't have, you know, when you drink locally, they're selling direct maybe to a winery or to a restaurant, and the markup is very little and everyone gets along just fine. But when you start to export it and then putting UK duty on there, that's £2.23, and then VAT and all the shipping stuff, you know, wines that are cheap at home.
Shipping's complicated, isn't it? The shipping from Greece.
It is, and all of it adds cost. But so when it gets into the UK, to have a wine like this, Moschfilero, from a rare grape variety from the region Arcadia, is, anyway, I think it's a real gem. Would you mind, Matthew, sharing maybe just to give people an idea of where we are in Greece?
Would love to.
Because when we think about Greece, we might think of the islands. Of course, Athens is like an incredible city, but here we are. Thank you, buddy. So here we're in Arcadia, and we are really in the center. There's sort of where it says Tripoli, and it's in around there. This is the area where Yanis Troupis is making this wine. And so what the thing to appreciate from here is how far it is away from the coast and how elevated it is. So I'm talking about the origin here, and then we'll come back and taste and talk about the wine. But everyone, please have a good old mouthful and just appreciate this lecture on Greek geography. So the further away it is from the coast and the greater the altitude, you're changing the climate. If it's down by the coast, you know, you're going to get a lot of sea, maritime influence, but up there, it starts to become continental climate. So now that we know where we are, Matt, would you mind flicking on? I'm not sure if I can do that, or if you can.
There we go.
So there's our man, Yanis Troupis, and the grape is Moschfilero. And Moschfilero, it comes from the word, this is actually the least appealing part about this evening's tasting, but it comes from the word fly, because the fly, mosh, is the same in French, and mush, and must be Latin, I guess, origin. And the flies are attracted to it because of its intense sweetness. So they're really ripe, juicy, sweet, muscat-like grapes. And if you see on the right-hand side there, the crate with the grapes on it, that is you can see they're purple-skinned grapes, you know, dark-colored grapes, excuse me, but that is the grape that has produced this pure white wine. And so what they do is they press those grapes. That's the Moschfilero grape. They press it, and the juice inside is white. And just as a reminder to everyone, and I'm sure you know this, but it's just to put it into your psyche and to context. But when you buy grapes from a greengrocer or a supermarket, red grapes, when you bite into that red grape, inside is all white. The flesh is all white. It's just that thin bit on the outside that's purple or red. And so the juice that comes out of a red grape is white, typically. So here you've got this grape, but he's making a white wine from it. And so it's aromatic, sweet. And then the next one, if you don't mind, Matt, just sort of shows, and it won't be death by PowerPoint tonight, everyone, but just to give you an idea, sort of frames it. As I mentioned earlier, as you saw, away from the coast, up the mountains, you can see in the background on the left slide or image, it's mountainous. And so what you get is a continental climate. And what that means is it's blinking hot in the summer, 40 degrees, and it's blinking cold in the winter, 0 degrees, -2, like that. And that massive drop, it's kind of an extreme viticulture. So when we think of Greece, we might think of sort of warmer, long evenings and so on. But here it's quite extreme winemaking, but it produces wines with excellent aromatics. So if everyone, on that note, I think that's the end of it. If you can kill the slides, Matt, thanks very much, buddy. On that note, the aromatics, it's one of the few grapes, and it'd be good to everyone just sort of throw in any thoughts you have in the chat, just for people to follow along. And remember, 100%, there is no wrong answer. And every time someone suggests a fruit character, others will go, oh yeah, and the fruit character will speak to Matt, but it won't speak to me, and vice versa, and to everyone else. So you just throw them in there. And I think it's one of the few grape varieties you're thinking Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Sauvignon, that actually smells of grapes. So it's a little bit grapey, this one, a little bit muscat-like. Some spice, is tropical, exotic. Someone I think said lychee. I would say that, and Turkish delight. Absolutely. What would you add to that?
Rose water, rose petal.
Yeah,
it's a muscat grape. It's a part of the muscat family. So they're the grapes that smell and taste a bit of grapes, and more of those sort of aromatics, perfumed characters, lifted perfume. So it's definitely, you know, if you like Gewürztraminer, if you like muscat, they're all these sorts of aromatic grapes. But what I love about this one is it has the freshness and the minerality as well. That it's not oily or cloying, or it's very fresh. Again, you're talking about the center of Greece there, and you know, seeing snow in the winter, which is staggering. I've never seen that picture, and but so hot in the summer. But the freshness is fantastic, and there you go. It's a variety that is from there and has established itself and adapted to the climate, which I think always, you know, I always enjoy seeing that sort of thing and tasting that. So it's just very individual wine, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. And you pointed out the alcohol on the previous one, the Buret, which is also adapted to that area. This is 12% alcohol. So you get so much flavor, so much give, and yet just so fresh. And the palate, so whilst the nose is aromatic, Turkish delight and lychees and grape, then the palate is just like racy, fresh, clean. So
yeah, racy.
Another just one to have, you know, to knock back. I think I've you know, others might suggest what they might pair it with food wise. I think sometimes a go-to easy one is to say sort of Asian cuisine or so on, but I think it's actually a sitting around and talking, you know, with friends, and just, you know, because it's easy and it's clean and fresh.
Our notes apparently say they'll go well with, it would go well with pies, and one of our angels is asking which pies.
Well,
so
go ahead.
Spinach and feta pie, perhaps. I think in a phyllo pastry pie, maybe. If I think of a Greek pie, I don't think we're thinking of sort of steak pie with the football or something like that. Yeah.
Rock up to Hull versus Derby County with a bottle of Mosh Falero. Yeah. Anyway, it's great. It's really, I know, the persistence as well, the length, and so it goes. And now we're getting some Greek dishes coming in, and fish pie. I would agree, indeed.
Fish pie, fantastic. Yeah, vine leaves. You know, Greek food. You know, Greek food. Wine always comes from a place, and it's completely intertwined with food. So, you know, stuffed vine leaves. You know, you know, Greek salad, Greek feta.
Yeah, there you go.
Wonderful.
You've summed it all up in a nutshell. The other thing to point out for those who do like this wine, and in the end actually love Yanis Troupishin's wines, but he has another wine. I can't recall. I'm not sure. I should have checked before, and apologies. But he has another wine called Route Gris, and like the Grey Road, but like Route Gris, French language, but on a Greek bottle. The label is stunning. And here he's done something a little bit funky. So where I said you had those purple grapes, and he presses the grapes and just the white juice comes out, and that's why we have this clear white wine. With Route Gris, he's made what you might call an orange wine, but it's more like a peach color. He's let the skin sort of sit and macerate with the white juice for a little bit, and it gives it this lovely tinge and color, but also flavor. And talking about, if you're all here because you want to try something off the beaten track, that really is something that you should pick up. It's absolutely incredible. So the flavor,
it's stunning wine.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so well made as well. Blood orange flavors, tangerine, and it's just a journey, that wine, an experience. So that's the other wine made from Mosh Falero, but just made in a different way. Exact same grapes, but made in a different method that gives
a bit longer with the skin.
Yeah, you get a bit more texture in it, and it's a white wine, pretty much. You might call it, when you look at it, you say it's a rosé or a pink wine, but it's in that area. So that's called Route Gris. Look out for that. And if we're sold out, I apologize deeply, but it will definitely be back next year. Shall we go to the next wine, Matt?
We shall. Why not? Okay, so if you grab your taster. So we're heading from Greece off to Moldova. So we've got a Trees by Serena Cordero.
Lovely.
And Serena's perhaps better known to you guys as one of our Italian winemakers. It's made some fabulous wines, particularly she's from the north of Italy, and made some fabulous wines with Garvi, Barolo, a few other things. But she also knows a winery, works with a winery in Moldova, which is quite far away. Let me share again the screen if I can. It's the wrong screen. Can you see that, everyone? Yeah. There we go. You can just see how far away Moldova is from the UK. It's right by the Ukraine. It's near the Black Sea. So it's a fascinating country. It's actually quite a developed wine industry in Moldova. They make quite a significant amount of wine. And historically, most of that wine would have gone to Russia. But due to diplomatic disagreements, shall I say, between the two countries in particular, Russia actually banned the importation of Moldovan wine in 2013. And so effectively, a lot of their sales to Russia disappeared. Since then, I guess we've known about Moldova a bit more in the UK and in the EU because they've been making more sort of alignments with the EU. And with that's come lots more development in winemaking, and quality is improved and so forth. But what you do get because of that is incredible value for money. And it's a fascinating country. So you're getting the sort of continental climate, I guess, but you're near the Black Sea, so you're getting a bit of maritime influence, keeping things fresh. It's a country that predominantly makes white wine. About 70% of its production is white wine. And they've got lots of indigenous varieties, many of which I won't dare to pronounce on this Zoom tonight, but they share a lot of those indigenous varieties with countries like Romania, where they grow Fetiasca Negra, and Hungary. But they also planted lots of international varieties to gain favour with the EU. And here we've got a really interesting blend. It's predominantly Chardonnay, and it's blended with Riesling and Traminer. And a lot of the times I would say that's sacrilege. I'm a bit of a Riesling purist. I very rarely find Riesling blends that work well. Riesling is quite a strong personality and kind of needs to be kept on its own. But here, I think is really, it really works. It really works. So you're getting these incredible creamy, fruity Chardonnay characters. And then you're getting, it's one of these wines you can pick out each individual variety, I think. So you can see the Chardonnay, you can see the sort of steely structure of the Riesling, and then you can see this Traminer component, which is an aromatic variety, a bit like the Mostrelero we just tasted. So it's more those grapey, aromatic wines. And what you get is just this lovely like burst of fruit salad in the mouth, I think. It's all fruit. There's no oak or anything like that. It's very simple winemaking, but it's just, I think the fruit salady fruits coming through. Hopefully you can see all of those different varieties, and it's just incredible value for money, I think.
Yeah, the value for money. Again, it does sound like we're trying to sell, but that's not the objective at all. It's to introduce you. And Matt, that was an awesome rundown of an area that our minds don't go to too much, but when you look at that quality, and perhaps you've been tasting wines from Pinot Grigio from the north of Italy, or something fresh and fruity from the south of France, I mean, that really, it's a very strong contender, and the Italians and the French really would want to sort of be aware of the quality and opportunity that comes out of there. So for $7.99, Angel is, I can still taste it. A moment ago, but the persistence, and I think They also do a PG. I just see Lisa throw up a question there, but I'm focusing. So Serena makes a Pinot Grigio and this Treese, and she is just introducing, and I think it's somewhere in the world, somewhere in the supply chain, a new Chardonnay, and it's lightly oaked, and it's really smooth. It's really good. But I think the way you frame that, Matt, in terms of like the structure of the Chardonnay, the steeliness of the Riesling, and then the nice top notes of the fruity Traminer character, it's all in one. Yeah, it's like a smorgasbord of fruits, and yeah, it's beautiful wine. I
It's a
wonder,
delight. It really is.
and what does everyone else think in terms of, I mean, it's difficult to compare it to somewhere else, but sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you just go, okay, Moldova, you've landed, you're in, and that's your style. And I think Serena's done an outstanding job there.
I think it mostly reminds me of Pinot Grigio, but Pinot Grigio on steroids. It's like Pinot Grigio with loads of flavor and concentration. And so I think that's the thing that most I feel it's got that sort of nectarine peach pear skin fruit character, and it was so really good, really high quality, like very northern, maybe Italian Pinot Grigio, but even more turbocharged. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and the comments. I usually do my best to avoid focusing too much on the chat and then save, and we have a discussion looking at the Q&A. But there's some fantastic suggestions, cream soda, and just comments on Moldova versus Greece. It's brilliant. So the interaction this evening, guys, is fantastic, and I hope you guys are enjoying that. Matt and I are indulging ourselves talking and tasting these wines, but you guys are having a hell of a lot of fun. But I'm having fun. I'm back in the UK. That's the most important thing. So we have actually, I will just tell people as we're sort of enjoying this wine and without rushing onto it. I was I took my first trip in a very long time. I went to Germany on Monday, and the objective there was we put out a list. We asked you guys, where should Matt and Ray go traveling, and on that list, as well as which we saw people commenting in there about Georgia, Slovenia, on there, and our shopping list was German wines. And so Matt and I jumped into action, just opening our black books, thinking, okay, what can we do? Where can we look at? And at the same time, there was this devastating, for a low point in the evening, just to mention the floods that went through Northern Europe in July 14th. And went through the Our Valley wine region and sort of took human life, but also just smashed up the whole vineyards and the barrels and so on. And so they lost an awful lot. And we knew then that, Naked Wines and the power of the community, those of which joined here with us this evening, we could do something about it. And we could help that. We could sort of do a fundraiser, buy some wines, donate 100% of the profits to regenerate this region, the Our Valley in Germany. And so that's what we've done. We pulled in lots of samples from contacts from the German Wine Institute, friends of each of us, and we got them in, lined up all these wines, and we've picked 6 of the really absolute best wines and put them in a 6-pack, and we're going to be doing a marketplace deal. So anyone who's new to Naked, marketplace is where you get sort of like, basically you get a collection of wines that are sometimes one-off. Well, this will be one-off, and you put your bid in, and then the wine will arrive sometime later, like January. But all of your money, 100% of the profit, goes to regenerate this area. So where I'm going with this, slight digression of tonight's evening, well, it was off the beaten track in that it was driving. I drove to the Moselle, drove to the Rheingau, which is outside of Frankfurt. Moselle is Trier, Saarbrücken area. Rheingau is Frankfurt. And then over the Rhine on a car ferry to Nahe, which is still close to Frankfurt. And then drove down to, and tasted the wines and these, so that we know that the quality is good. And then drove down to Luxembourg, a country which you wouldn't even imagine makes wines, country you wouldn't even imagine exists, but it does exist and it makes wines. And just about. And I spent yesterday driving around there, up and down little valleys and 3 different regions tasting wines. And so we might maybe one day somehow bring some of those wines in as well. So I'm telling you this because you are the audience that really are interested in off the beaten track. And I think Luxembourg, you'd have to mark down on the off the beaten track list. So
must have been Must have been great to get back on the road, Ray. You look busy for sure.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was wonderful. I'd tell you, even just I flew into Luxembourg because it's closest to Trier. It's like 20 minutes over the border. So I flew there, got the car, and pulled out and onto the motorway and had the music on. And then it was just, you just go straight into vineyards, and it was just like, here we go again. And it was an amazing feeling. It was a really, really good feeling. And it's very strict over there, masks and COVID passports and all that sort of stuff. So it was very safe as well. That was brilliant. So I and you, Matt, we're both very privileged in what we do, but we bring the goods home, and we won't bring all of them. So some wines I tasted, I went, that's nice, but it's not good enough. And so what we will bring in will be good.
That's the fun bit. And I've tasted some of those wines that you've shortlisted for that case, and they're fantastic. So that's extremely exciting, and I hope everyone really gets behind that, because there's just a brilliant opportunity to get your hands on some absolutely delicious German Rieslings, and it's very, very. Germany is a very exciting place right now for dry Riesling.
Beautiful winemaking. So we'll have Riesling, Pinot Blanc, Sylvaner, and Pinot Noir, Spätburgunder. So anyway, that is going to come out next week, Thursday, the 30th, a marketplace deal. So you could join the marketplace group, but I'm sure my dearest colleagues who are working there in the background, Simon, might share some links so you can follow. So back to the case in point, which is
number 4.
We're on to red.
What have you got for us?
Well, we go taste some Pinot Noir. That's a very, very fine Pinot Noir at that.
I watch my cream carpet up here. Got to watch that now.
Watch it. We moved in. Okay, so so now we're having Pinot Noir, and it's from Oregon. So in the United States, and you wouldn't say the United States is off the beaten track per se, but a lot of the wines, well, we don't get many American wines over here, but then you think of some terrible, awful wines that are in, supermarkets and so on. But the Napa Valley, so you're in California, most is what you think about for American wines. Well, you might think further, you have the Finger Lakes in New York, but here we're talking about Oregon, and we have Oregon, and above Oregon, you've got Washington State. So Dave Harvey is a winemaker we brought on last year, and he's based in Washington State. So that's, Seattle and inwards. And here it's Oregon, so it's Portland, and then so just to give an idea, thanks for that. Just to give you an idea of how far away, and therefore, let's say disconnected, or let's say not related, Oregon is from California, where a lot of the wines come from. So you've heard of Napa Valley in California, perhaps, and they produce premium wines. And then you've got Lodi, where Stephen Millier is making his wines. And we have a good and growing, let's say, always improving American range. But Oregon is another state, literally. So you can see how far up it is. But this difference in latitude here means you're getting closer basically to the Arctic. And so you're getting longer days as you go up. So you're getting the days, and that means longer ripening. So where the sun has gone down or has gone behind the mountain, and the ripening ends down in, we're looking at Sacramento there, but you're talking Napa Valley, a bit inland towards the coast. Where the sun goes down, if it went down at say 6 p.m., further north here, you get an extra 20, 30, 40 minutes of ripening and on. And what that does is it's a slower, longer ripening period, which gives, this sounds a bit boring, but trust me, you can taste it in the wine. It gives a greater development of flavors. So if it finished at 6 p.m. and went home, the sun, you'd get just a shortness, and it wouldn't sort of give you as much. But because it sticks around for an extra hour, it's giving a bit more time for the sugars to develop, which develop into compounds and flavors. And so with this wine, you're then getting one of the world's premium Pinot Noir producers. Oregon is really, Yamhill Carton is a sub AVA is what they call it, let's say a sub appellation, a sub region, let's say. And it's a specific place that produces very high quality Pinot Noir from Oregon. So when we think of the great Pinot Noir regions of the world, you'll start in Burgundy, which is the home of Pinot Noir. So that's where you've heard of things like Gevrey-Chambertin, Nuits Saint-Georges, Pommard, those kind of things, Von Romanet. And then there's other places around the world that have done very good job of that. Mornington Peninsula in Australia, of course, New Zealand, Central Otago. But lest you forget Oregon and its Pinot Noir production. Thanks for the slide there, Matt. I think we can go back and appreciate the wine. So what I would say just to describe this wine, and I haven't seen the comments come in, but maybe you guys are already on this already, is that it's a fuller, riper style of Pinot. So it's not pale, light, translucent. I love that style of Pinot, and it depends, how light you want your wine. Some people don't like it too pale, but either way, I like all wine. I'm not too bad. I just take it all. But in this one, you get a little bit of depth in the color, and you get depth in the nose, the palate. So it's like dark cherry, and you get a sort of Morello cherry, and you get more. And then also, which is quite important in quality Pinot Noir, is quality oak. And the selection of oak is very important. So it's almost a bit of wine, and wine in general, that people might not forget about, but they wouldn't think about. We've talked about the wine regions. We talked about the grape varieties and how well they do there. Then you talk about some winemaking. But when you go to oak at the end, and not all wines are oak, the first 3 wines weren't oaked. Here, you're going to add it into an oak barrel. And what the oak barrel can do is mess the whole thing up. It can bludgeon the fruit, it can kill it, can totally take over the wine. So it's very much, it should just be like a pepper, salt and pepper spice. It should just complement the wine. And it's a fine art, a dark art that I daren't even begin to imagine. But those winemakers, they really go right down to selecting the forest in which the oak came from. And then the oak is then turned from an oak tree into a barrel, so down into staves, and it's put together into the shape of a barrel. And I'm spelling it out slowly because the next bit is that they put it over a fire. This flame is going up and they're toasting the barrel. Now they have to decide, do they want a light toast, which is going to have minimal influence on the wine, or they want a heavier toast or a medium toast. And all of that has to be related to the ripeness and juiciness and quality of the wine. And in this wine, like I said, it's a bit deeper in color, deeper in body. So he's probably gone for like a medium toast. So he's taken a bit of the flame and it chars the inside of the barrel. And then the inside of the barrel, when you add the wine in, influences and integrates and complements the juice. And then it spits this out, basically. So it's something to appreciate because it really is a science and an art, that sort of marriage between quality Pinot Noir and good oak. Matt, I would welcome your thoughts on the wine.
Right, stunning, I think. And you're absolutely right. Oregon is one of the world-class places to buy, to go looking for if you're a real Pinot lover. It is one of the world's best places for all of the reasons you've described. This, I think that's exactly right. This is a riper, richer style of Pinot. Lots of people on the track noticing the color, noticing the slightly smoky bacon character, which I definitely get. Bit that diminishes a little bit as the time goes on and the wine's been open. So I do recommend giving it a bit of air, and that some of that smokiness blows away. But you're left with this lovely ripe sort of blackberry, plummy fruit, and very just the mouthfeel, I think, is just so, it's just a big cuddle in the mouth, isn't it? It's just so supple. It's unmistakably Pinot Noir, but it is a little bit juicier, a little bit, it's not brash or American, but it's rich and it's full and it's soft. Lots of people are asking about the oak as well, and you've just described, I mean, you can go down a complete you can just go down a rabbit warren discussing oak, can't you? And all of the different parameters involved with oak. But I agree, it's a sort of medium toast. There's some toasty elements in the Pinot, some of those smoky bacon characters definitely coming from the oak.
Absolutely.
But I think this is just delicious. I mean, not cheap. Oregon's never cheap, but it is one of those world-class regions, and Chris Baker's selecting these vineyards from just about the best site and recognized the best site in Oregon, in the Willamette Valley. So, it is the top of the tree, if you like. And I think it's just stunning wine. Brilliant for a roast chicken, a bit of goose, Christmas time if you fancy treating yourself, goose, a guinea fowl, birds, those sorts of birds. Yeah, delicious.
And I think like we've all just tasted it from the pack, poured it straight away, but an hour decanted, it'll just sort of, as you say, blow off some of that top notes of smoky bacon. And you mentioned top quality, the Oregon versus Napa or the rest of or California. Oregon is mostly family-owned wineries. It's boutique, it's small, and you sort of pay for that because they need to get the return for themselves, and so they don't try, and they just do what they do because they actually know they're making very good wine. But Chris Baker, as you said, he's out there finding great vineyards, and it's great. His Pinot Gris we've just had added as well. So, and he also has Dundee Hills, another sub-appellation of Oregon. So you've got 2 Pinot Noirs from him and a Pinot Gris. So Christmas, I reckon.
It's worth saying just on that, the small vineyards, the normal sort of trade in Oregon, I suppose, is cellar door sales and a subscription. Each winery is small and the wines are very sought after. Generally speaking, most wineries have a waiting list and an email list, and they sell all of their wine on allocation in Oregon, and that's that. But it's great to have Chris there. He knows everyone. He's able to select great parcels for Naked, and we're able to get in there and source some great, and in that regard, this is actually pretty damn good value, I think. Exactly. Even at whatever it is, $17.99.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Just where the model actually is able to work. So we have an independent winemaker on the ground who has got contacts to vineyards, and then he's able to pull it together rather than going after a very small production winery who have nothing to sell. So you just, if you fund the man or the woman, then they can deliver the goods like that.
Right.
Well, it'd be rude to rush through the wine, so I might just have a very long, poignant last sip of it, and then let you fill the space, and then we move on to the next wine. Yeah.
Well, we'll just all watch you have a long poignant sip. Yeah.
Okay, done now. Thank you. That was lovely. So our next wine.
What do we got? Number 5.
Number 5 is Alive. This is Marko Sodjakovic. He is actually Serbian, but he lives and makes wine in North Macedonia. And the color is fantastic. So he's made wines around the world, but like in very top places, Chateau Palmer in Bordeaux, Beaucastel in the southern Rhone. So Chateau Beaucastel, so very famous wineries. And then, so he worked as a consultant there, and then he came back to North Macedonia to invest because he believed, and he was right, he backed the right horse. He really believed in the potential of the country, the region, the climate, also again, continental climate. And here you got Vranac, a great variety, North Macedonia, also seeding in Croatia. So it's down in those Balkan states, and then it blended with Syrah. Syrah will just give the suppleness to it. Vranac just gives like structure, good color, depth. And it's one of those sort of, when you're tasting a wine like this, I think it's just nice. It's a bit of escapism. You just go to the other side of some way the other side of the world, and you're going to an area, you sort of voyage away from your regular stuff. So you're going out of your comfort zone, but it really delivers the sort of dark fruits. Okay, so we will just quickly, I'll just show you some quick images so you know where we are, just to remind you. So it was called Macedonia. When I went there I think it was February 2019, and the EU vote had just passed that said now it's called North Macedonia. So there was a lot of people saying, no, I don't agree. And that's my North Macedonian accent. And so it was kind of controversial at the time. So now it's called North Macedonia because Greece, the northern part of Greece, has a state called Macedonia. So you see where we are. And again, it's inland. When you're that far away from the coast and you got altitude, you have continental climate, which means very, very hot summers, 38 degrees Celsius, and cold, cold, snowy winters. And that's good for the vine. It sort of lets it dormant, lets it sleep, because it shuts down in the winter, and then the summer sort of warms up and it gives the full ripeness. We'll just cruise on through a couple of these images, and then we'll get back to my beautiful face for everyone.
The man.
Yeah, and this is the man, Marco, and yeah, he's a good dude. He's looking very serious and cool there. Like I said, he worked for Chateau Palmer and Chateau Beaucastel. And then it's just about, you know, basically how the quality of wine that they're making, but there's still an element of old and, you know, caught in time. Again, it's another USS store,
rustic
state, and that's it. It's just this honest people from the local area vineyards hand picking into these. You see these baskets, and it's largely picked this way. But of course, machinery will slowly come in just to speed things up, and machinery is a good thing. Machinery. I'll talk about it just after. So I'll just show you this slide and then we can get back to my face. But these are these large 8,000 liter casks. And what that does is that it doesn't, we were just talking about oak barrels. And when the oak barrels I was talking about for the Pinot Noir, those are 225, 228 liter barrels. That's quite small, like you know, put your leg up on it. And here it's 8,000 liter casks. So thanks Matt, if you kill the slides, I can sort of explain.
Do yourself a mischief if you put your leg up on those ones.
Exactly. When you get into the Royal Ballet Company for sure. But the difference is the wine to oak ratio. And so when you've got a little bit of wine in your barrel, in the barrique they call them, you got a little bit of wine to quite a bit of oak. And so you have an oaky influence. And when you go to a big botti or a big cask like that, there's a lot of wine to just a little bit of oak on the outside. So the oak influence isn't as much, but it still does the same job of letting oxygen slowly in and sort of softens the wine and matures the wine. So each winemaker, and Marco will also have barriques for a different wine, but in these wines, we're in these big, so you get the mouthfeel here should be soft. And I thought that Pinot Noir was delicious, but I thought it had quite a bit of structure. It was quite angular. And then you come onto this wine and it's just supple and soft. And that's the Shiraz with the Branach. So yeah, that's it. It's another awesome enjoy. I went there, just a little story anecdote. I flew, landed, picked me up. We drove to the winery, tasted, we blended this wine together. We blended the other just below it, and we put a lot of time tasting. And then it came to like 9 p.m. and I'd been up since, I don't know, 5 p.m. to fly there, and I was a little bit tired. And he goes, "Have you had dinner?" And I was like, "Well, no, because I've been sitting with you all day. So unless you've had dinner, I haven't had dinner." And he goes, "Oh, come downstairs and we'll eat something in the winery." We go downstairs, and there's this big group of people. So it was pre-pandemic, and I think they were restaurant staff from the next country over. What did I just say earlier? Not Syria.
Get the map out.
Serbia. Serbia. Exactly. Enough with the maps. Serbia. And these guys and girls have come in, and there's this band playing down in the wine cellar, and there's food, and they're all smoking cigars and drinking wine. And I was just like, holy moly. And it was just a very sort of like surreal experience to be sitting there, and they all know the words, the songs the band are playing, and it's very lively. And it made you just think, and he's smiling, and they love him because Marco's the chief winemaker, and they go, "Oh my God, you made the wine." So it was sitting amongst royalty where they all adored him and the music, and they're all singing the songs, the Serbian songs and North Macedonian songs. And it was just very much, if there was off the beaten track, that was the most off the
that was it
I ever felt.
Yeah.
So what do people think in the wines? Is this, I think we've had it for a couple of years, and so people appreciate it.
People liking it. A couple of comments, saying it needs a bit of food. I think absolutely. This is a food-driven wine. A lot of wines are. I think that's the base position mainly on wine. It's a drink invented for food primarily, but there are plenty of wines you can drink on their own, and this for sure. I've tasted pure Branach a few times. It can be quite tannic on its own sometimes. So I think the addition of Shiraz, Syrah here is a fabulous addition. It just fills that hole, makes it juicier, more supple, adds a different dimension to it. Vernets is known for its color and its structure, and it can be a bit dry on its own sometimes. So the Shiraz works wonders with this. And also you talked about the use of those old oak casks, and that's key there. I think that very slow contact with oak just makes a very comforting, juicy wine.
Easy, very easy wine. And like I said, he has two wines, but this is the one that sort of just gives a little bit more generosity and power. I would say when I was tasting it, as you were talking about food, lamb chops came into my mind, but then again, lamb always comes into my mind. So, whatever the question, answers lamb. And but then, in a vegetarian sense, you got sort of maybe like smoked aubergine slices on a barbecue or in the grill or in the oven, and you just give it a little bit of that warmth and a little bit of spice on there. Very good. And then that wine is ready to drink now, I think. And in terms of development, you've got mouthfeel, but as the wine develops, you go a little less mouthfeel and more complexity. So you get a little bit sort of more tobacco-y character or mushroomy character like that. But very, very approachable.
Should last for a few years, that wine, I would have thought. It's got the structure, it's got the fruit. It's not going anywhere, is it? But Absolutely. It's soft because of the Shiraz, it's juicy and approachable now. But I think the structure will keep that going for a while. It might go a bit more meaty, a bit more savory. But that's great.
I think it's nice. Very good, but lovely. And anyway, just also nice to have wines from that part of the world. Actually, we've been quite swayed that part of the world, haven't we? But that is off the beaten track versus the France, the Germanys, and so on.
Yeah. But there's so much value to be. I mean, it's there to be discovered. There's and that came up again. You were talking about our shopping list that we invited the angels to talk to comment on about a month ago. And a lot of Eastern European countries, Georgia, Romania, lots of comments about Croatia, those sorts of countries. And there's incredible value to be had. But not just that. There's really undiscovered grape varieties that just work really well in those countries and bring something different to the equation. And it's just such a big world of wine out there that well, personally, I just like exploring constantly and never going back twice to the same thing. Obviously I do, but it's there to be discovered, isn't it? So that's what we're talking about tonight, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I, we jumped straight into that shopping list, and we've got quite a lot of samples to look at. We've looked at some already. I came home to a door full of boxes of wine, and so you and I are catching up next week. And we'll be tasting wines from Georgia, Greece. What else have we got? I got some from Bordeaux, but that's not off the beaten track. So we got some wines today. So lots coming down the line. So is this
cool? Let's hit that last wine.
Okay.
Why not, everyone?
Cool.
So we're heading to Spain now for this last wine, to southern Spain, to Murcia, which is kind of to the east of the Costa del Sol in Spain. The southern coast there, the coast of the sun, and sunny and warm. It is down there, I can tell you, and I'm sure plenty of you guys have visited down there. It's very hot, very dry. You've got the maritime influence of the Mediterranean, but it's really warm. But you've also got the fierce, when you start to get a little bit inland and not very far inland, you start to get the fierce heat of the center of Spain. And that's exactly where this wine comes from Murcia. It's made by David Toftrup, who I'm sure you all know, Danish winemaker, a well-awarded Spanish winemaker, but Dane, who's been in Spain for a very long time and has been making some great wines for us. And in this neck of the woods, it's all about the grape variety Monastral. You might know it as Mourvèdre in France or Mataro in Australia. but it's this thick-skinned, very, very late ripening variety, Monastrell. It doesn't mind a bit of drought. It can handle the heat. Actually, in this part of Spain, it's ridiculously dry, but the soil has a lot of limestone in it, and so when there is a little bit of winter rain, it has a fantastic effect of managing to hold on to that water and stop it evaporating. So the vines can flourish down there, particularly Monastrell. And then you've also where David is growing these Monastrell grapes, you've got a little bit of altitude there. You've got actually quite a bit of altitude. It's between about 400, 800 meters above sea level. So you're really ramping up away from the coast, and you're getting a little bit of those nighttime freshness temperatures to keep everything fresh and crunchy. Monastrell is a tricky grape in general, Mourvèdre. If you're not careful, it can be quite astringent, quite tannic, a little bit sort of tough and chewy. So I know David and you, Ray, would work really hard on this wine to get this sort of juicy softness, but you can get that from this part of Spain, and I think that's why we've taken you off the beaten track to perhaps a slightly more we all know about Rioja, we all know about the northern parts of Spain quite well, but it's this southern part which makes quite rustic, quite honest, fruity red wines that's it's a little bit off the beaten track, and makes some stunning options. This wine, I love it. I mean, if you look at the color, it's dark, but it's not, you can still see through it. It's still vibrant cherry. It's not overdone, it's not soupy, it's not stewed. It's still fresh, but it's a lovely warming wintry wine. Great option for Christmas again as we come into autumn season. This is why I think we wanted to show you this wine.
Perfume it's pretty smart, isn't it? Like it's very,
it's violets, and it's
violets.
it's elegant. It's floral violets, and then you get this lovely whack of fruit, brambly fruit, sort of hedgerowy brambly. It's quite wild, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's worth noting, and I'm remembering as you just describing you go up and up and up above sea level, and Eamon and I went there 4 years ago or something like that. We were determined to find a good quality Monastrell, and I have to say it was the only trip ever that I went on and came back empty-handed, and it was like, no, that was all.
Yeah, it's tough.
It was tough, and there wasn't before, and there has not been one since. But I just came back and was like, no, that's not good enough. And then it was David when through a contact, and it was his brother, and I knew his brother, and then so we worked on it, and I was like, yeah, this is it. Finally, this is it. So it's good, and Matt, we don't suffer fools and we don't settle for less. And so when it's worth just going, okay, if it's not there, not now, and you don't rush it. And so and this is worth waiting for. And David is the man. And in fact, we're about to announce a tasting tour tomorrow, and David will be on that.
Sneak preview.
Sneak preview.
There you go. But yeah, watch this space. David might be coming to a city near you soon.
Exactly. At some point. So yeah, that's a lovely wine. That's maybe more towards roast, is it? In terms of like that sort of charred area where it's a bit more full body, a bit more power, gravy, and so on, and anything you want really. Well, what we might do is take some questions, and there was something. There was a mention there in the chat just from, I think it was Rahel. Maybe and it was about the QR codes on these tasting packs, but actually the QR code for wines is in here, and
it's on the tasting booklets, isn't it?
Okay, so you just scan that, and then it'll take you to the page, and you can add to basket if you want. But that is not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is just to sort of hang out and taste and talk about nice wines. So why don't we kick off? So I'm going to go to the very top here. Matt, I'll read if you don't mind. You've been driving from Charlotte. In your opinion, red or white with cheese? There you go, Matt. This is like, the meaning of life.
Oof.
He's going to give a politician answer. Yeah, for you, white wine.
For me, white wine every time, but unless it's port or something sweet. I find dry red wine, unless it's really big, like Amarone or something like that, doesn't handle cheese well. Dry, maybe slightly oxidized white wine works brilliantly, but dry fresh white wine, yeah.
So the crisp, the acidity, the freshness cuts through the
Yeah.
fat of the cheese. Yeah, very nice.
I think
agree.
so.
Yeah. One from Nick. Advice, please, about breathing for wine. How long should a wine breed for? And does it vary between grapes? Thanks. I'll have a stab at that.
Great question.
Yeah, it is. And yes, the answer is it does vary by grape. It varies by wine. And so how would you have an idea? Like what I would say.
And age varies by age as well.
That way. Yeah, exactly. So real simple rule of thumb is, open it, taste it if you can. Okay, and I know you're what it won't do, taste it as close as possible to when you want to eat or match it with. So, but a young sort of modest priced wine probably doesn't need to age or aerate so much, breathe so much. But if you've got an old wine, and by old I mean 10 years plus, so 20 years as well, but not many of us do have many of those wines. But if you did have one, when you open those, typically, in my experience, and there may be others, they go up and then they start to go down quite quick. The oxygen starts to hit them and so on. So don't open those too far in advance. You might think, oh, it's a 1982 XYZ. It needs 3 hours. And so in fact, it's the other way around. Well, probably needs 30 minutes, and then you capture the goodness. And so in general, if you're talking about, say, a Châteauneuf de Pape, if you're talking about this wine, for example, the last wine we're tasting, I think 45 minutes, an hour. It's just about what's happening is it's been put in a glass bottle, it's had a cork in it and a capsule. So it's been anaerobic, away from oxygen. And when you put it into a decanter, you're letting oxygen in, and oxygen will eventually eat the wine, kill the wine, and become vinegar, which is vin aigre, bitter wine. So you don't want it to go to vinegar. You don't want it to be in the bottle. You want to get it out of the bottle. And I would just say you aerate it, and it softens everything, and you're good in about 45 minutes to an hour. The answer is 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, moving on.
That's accurate.
Yeah, from Sharita, why is it hard to find sweeter wines like Moscato and Riesling in the UK? These were plentiful when we visited Italy and Australia. Well, Matt, I'm going to slopey shoulder that one to you, but with regards to our range, you're looking for sweeter style of Moscato, sweeter style of Riesling. Question is how sweet?
Yeah. I guess, everyone's different, and different people like different levels of sweetness. I suppose current tastes, particularly in the UK, have been towards drier wines, and I suppose it's a balancing act, certainly for Ray and I, how we put wines into the range and how we cater for all tastes. We try to cater for all tastes, but at the same time, if some sweeter styles are maybe a bit niche, then it's a struggle to do that. So I guess going on popular taste profiles of the UK in the last 20 years have been moving towards a drier style. That said, there are things to look out for. Yeah, so it is things like Moscato. It is some of the sweeter styles of German wine. But I agree with you that they're not as common as they once were, and other countries do tend to have a sweeter profile. Certain other countries. Italy, you can find them because Italy makes a lot of them. I would say Italy doesn't actually consume a lot of those wines. Australia, yeah, maybe. But it's just about, I guess, it's the popular consensus and kind of appealing to that, really, that's driven the direction of travel for everyone. Yeah.
I thank you for that, Matt. Robert asks, does the Greek wine have any links to Sauterne? So Sauterne, the appellation in Bordeaux that makes the very, very sweet, concentrated, delicious, amazing, best sweet wines in the world, perhaps. The answer is no. I don't think so. The one we had tonight was a sort of an aromatic, gave an element of sweetness, but more sort of fruity profile. It was maybe clean, crisp, and dry. And then, do they do a sweet wine? Not if I tasted it. It was about 4 years ago at a wine fair. And so I'm going to have to say, I don't believe so, Robert, on that one. No, sorry.
Yeah.
Lynn Carter, tasting notes suggests enjoying this one with pies. I think you covered that one, Matt.
We've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll move on, Ray. Derek Broughton, again, we love the low alcohol, very reminiscent of our wines back home in Nova Scotia. Oh, very cool. Oh, welcome.
Nova Scotia.
Yeah, very good. Nice.
Yeah.
And Mike
is off the beaten track for one.
Yeah. Mike asked, theoretically, could any country make wine with its own grapes, even if it tasted awful? The answer is yes. Ooh. Well, it's about when it's all changing with climate change, but it's about latitude and where you are. So you've got the equator, which is 0 degrees, and it's blinking hot. And the answer is no, not really. So it's
very humid on the equator, and it's really hard to grow grapes on the equator. That said, Brazil does grow grapes near the equator. And because of the other problem with vines is they expect 4 seasons in a year, and near the equator, you only get 2 seasons in a year, hot and even hotter and a bit humid. And actually, in the north of Brazil, near the equator, they get 2 vintages every year out of their vineyards because the vines are rather confused, and that's that. And then
it's the same. You're right. It's the same in Thailand. They get 2 vintages in 1 year. Yeah. And so what the vine can't do then is rest, sleep, and then start itself up again, which gives it all the energy, the carbohydrates there to go again and produce good wine. So it's not
a bit stressed, aren't they?
Yeah. So they have a shorter lifespan. So it can be too hot and then it could be too cold. So Sweden is making grapes, growing grapes, making wine. So is Norway. And I don't know about Greenland and Iceland, but I don't think so.
Probably not. There's a vineyard in Yorkshire, isn't there? A couple of vineyards in Yorkshire these days.
Yeah. Okay. And then Dan and Alice ask, are you looking at bringing on any other Greek wines? A nice Zinamavro, for instance. The answer is yes.
Cool.
We are on it. Matt's on to his mates. I'm on to my mates. We shall taste next Tuesday. And so to give you guys an idea, and also, we've got people making wine out of this new harvest that's happening now. It's harvest time around Europe in the Northern Hemisphere. And so when might you expect to see that, Dan and Alice? I would say, let's say June, to buy us a bit of time and a little bit of shipping and supply chain issues. So
it's been recorded that, right?
Exactly, June 2023. Okay. And then Vix, does Naked have plans for some Georgia wines, Matt?
Yeah, well, we're definitely looking. We're quite excited by Georgia, and we've tasted a few things already. We've got some more things to taste. We'd love to do something with Georgian wines. We think they're exciting. So very much towards the top of our shopping list. And that's exactly the sort of thing that gets us going. Yeah, exactly.
We've got 1, if not 2 in the bag so far, but we're just sort of teeing it up. Again, that will be here in 2040. That's no promises. No, it should be here next year, we hope. Paulina asks, I have a feeling these whites were in our fridge too long. Any advice about chilling white wine? I just a general piece. Matt and I, we did a crash course at the beginning of this September festival. So it was the first thing we did, and we had these tasting packs. And a sort of rule of thumb for me on, let's say, white wines in the fridge is Chardonnay, for example, doesn't need chilling so much. In fact, it's better when it's not so chilled. It opens up and it gives body and flavor. And when it's chilled too much, it just tastes a bit bland or drab. So that's the extreme of like not chilling a wine too much. Which wines should you chill so much? Well, some wines where it's more about the refreshment and you're not seeking out flavors and character. You just want a sort of refreshment and you want to sit with your friends and talk, have a laugh and kick back. Maybe a nice Pinot Grigio, something like that. Those wines are great straight from the fridge. So when you take it out of the fridge, and the longer you take it out of the fridge, it warms up or becomes less chilled. And when that happens, flavors start to come out. So the other rule of thumb is, if you do buy a bottle of wine from another retailer, not us because we only sell amazing wines, but if you found yourself going to a corner shop desperate for a bottle of wine at some hour of the night, and you got back and you're tasting it, oh my God, that's awful. what I can recommend is you chill the hell out of it, put it in the freezer, chill it down, and the chilling will remove
Nuke it.
nuke it. You remove all those nasty flavors, and you'll have 12% of alcohol to fulfill yourself with. Drink responsibly.
Some of the sort of more pungent wines like Sauvignon Blanc can handle a bit more chilling as well. They're so exuberant. A bit of chilling's not going to hurt them. But generally, the more subtle, the more complex the wine. It doesn't need to be. Generally, people over chill whites, and they serve red wines too warm. So it's all about coming into the middle, I guess, a bit, isn't it?
Yeah. Robert, cracking wine, Moldova. Please find more. Definitely want some of this, Robert. It's all yours. It's on the site. I was talking to Serena on the way back from the airport, and she's on the ball. She's on the case. So you have a Pinot Gris from Moldova. You have this Treese, which we tasted tonight, and soon, very soon, there should be a Chardonnay. So Moldova, 3 wines from Moldova, not bad going, I would say. From Jan, the Moldova wine. What temperature should we serve this at out of the fridge? It was a bit bland. Yep. So I think just cover that. Just leave it out a little bit, and then flavors start to pop. The cold nukes it. The less cold rather than the warm. The less cold sort of lets it breathe and open up. Derek again. Hello. I love it, Martha. I think we're in another chat here. Bit flat on the face, like PG. Okay, I think we might move on. And from Karen, are there any plans to get more Moldovan winemakers on board? Well, we'll have to add it maybe. I tell you what, Karen, if you could save that for about this time next year when we ask you all again, where should Matt and Ray go traveling, add to our shopping list, and we'll see there in bold print, Moldova, for the love of God, more wines from Moldova. So the plan is, direct answer is no, not yet. We're going to focus on some others that came in from the last survey we did.
Some other countries too.
Yeah, Greece, Lebanon, so on. So we'll do those. German Pinot Noir, that's coming in, that marketplace deal, which will be next Thursday. It'll be a one-off, that Pinot Noir, by the way, and otherwise Gerd Stepp makes great Pinot Noir. David, will there be a time when Naked will stop adding new wines? No, never. The rest of the question, I loved it when you felt you knew the winemaker. Now there seems to be lots and lots of new wines. I see what you mean. So is there a time, so are we overboarding things with new wines? Are we growing too far? It's a fair comment. What I think is important is that our loyalty and our 100% loyalty, and you will see it in our 100% loyalty to the winemakers that we began with 13 years ago, 2008, Benjamin Darnaud, Stephen Devet, Just Villebois, etc. All of those guys are still with us. All of those guys' businesses have grown because you have grown with us, and they are now, we stuck with them, they stuck with us, and so they've grown. And with those 3 winemakers I mentioned, we've added some new wines from them because they want to do new wines. They want to explore. Benjamin Darnaud introduced a Crémant de Bourgogne. Stephen Devet introduced his Reserve Chardonnay and Winemakers Reserve, and so on, and Just Villebois. So let's say the original, but not to be lost in the past, but the original staple of winemakers are here. We've taken care of them, you've taken care of them, and we add some new wines. And then it is in the interest of the vinous, the passion, the world, it's our duty to wine is to go, okay, but also Moldova, okay, Georgia, and we add them all in. So yes, there are new wines, there are new winemakers, and there's new wines. And we want to keep keeping things fresh and bringing them in. But what we will never lose is wines like Benjamin Darnaud, Minervois, Arabella Merlot, Just Villebois, Sauvignon, and Sancerre. So we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we are bringing in new more. It's about diversity and excitement and serving those that want it. Hope that wasn't too long an answer, but I've just
well said.
Oh, thank you very much. Wow. Brian asked, Matt, lovely shirt. Sorry, lovely Moldovan wine, but I used to work in Romania and I don't see any wines from there. Any reason, Matt? Why?
No, well, only reason is we haven't got there yet. We haven't explored, but I think if you look at Eastern Europe, Romania would be top of my list. fantastic wines from Romania, really good quality, really good value, a variety of interesting indigenous varieties, but also they make great quality Pinot Noir, for example. Some really nice aromatic whites. I think Romania is really exciting. We just got to get there, and that's on our shopping list for sure. I've done work in Romania in the past elsewhere. I've got some great ideas already. So watch this space.
Well, it's like I said, it's been recorded, Matt. So you'll be held to that this time next year.
I didn't put a time limit on it.
Watch the space for a very long time. And Robert, Washington and BC, British Columbia wines. Blasted Church, the best I've ever tasted. Is there a chance? That feels like a code. Are you okay, Robert? Everything okay there? We need to get you out. But it sounds like church. Do we have a chance? Yes, well, we have Washington State wines from Dave Harvey and Chardonnay Cab, and then Walla Walla, which is a sub-appellation, really good quality wine. So they're coming on. And then British Columbia, would you please add it to next year's shopping list? This one is as long as our arm. But thank you for asking. I think it's a good idea. Yeah. And we might reach out. Yeah. So
I think it was Canada not on there, just about was on the shopping list, wasn't it?
Oh, was it, Matt? I beg your pardon.
Okay. Maybe at number 10. Maybe.
You got this. You got it. Okay, yeah. Simon, how much breeding would be suggested for number 4, which is the Yamahill Carton Pinot Noir? What do you think, Matt? 1 hour?
Yeah, actually, a bit of time to let that slightly smoky bacon character, but just mingle in with the fruit a little bit. Maybe half an hour. Yeah, 45 minutes. I mean, it's all ready to go pretty much, but
I think so. Yeah, but you take it out of a bottle at Christmas time, I'd say half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Question from David Wooldridge: what sort of oak do they use in Oregon? I'm going to say French and American, and leaning towards French. So the difference, those are the two main, I say main, and I'm really narrowing it down. You've got Hungarian oak, Slovenian oak, and Slovenian with an A, not an E. And you, but you've got basically French oak forests and American oak, and they taste different and they cost different. French oak is much more expensive than American oak. American oak is a more open grain, vanilla, and it's a bit more sort of like just pushes everything up. And French oak is a bit more tighter grain, more restrained. And Pinot Noir, the way that wine looked, I'm pretty sure that's French oak, and lots of new French oak in that wine. Emily, I'm interested as to why this Pinot Noir is valued as so much more than what we've had before this, based on the price listed on the notes. Sorry if I missed the explanation. Could you help? Thanks for this evening. Very informative. Well, you're very welcome, Emily. Thanks for the question. So why is this Pinot Noir valued at so much more than what we've had before this? Okay, so we were tasting 3 white wines. We were at sort of $8.99, $7.99, and then we went in POW $22.99. I think that's the question. We started, and then the following 2 reds were, let's say, a bit more affordable. We started with the Pinot Noir. It's premium Pinot Noir, but we started with Pinot Noir because Pinot Noir is typically a lighter, more delicate grape variety. So we went organoleptically rather than economically, if that makes sense. So we just went on a sort of a wine that was more supple, lighter on the palate. And then the following wine, which was from, and we said Oregon, boutique, not cheap, high end, high quality, but it's Pinot Noir, so we started there. And then we moved on to the next wine, which is North Macedonia. It's a bit riper, continental climate, bolder. So that was the reason. I hope I've understood your question properly. And Jeff asks, and we might take 2-3 more, Matt, and then we'll wrap up because people are running out of their wine, I guess. Jeff, hi. If you get a chance to link something to the recording, can you give a bit of a plug to the off-piste group? People who've enjoyed tonight might like to join. I did put it on the chat, but it's moving so quickly. Oh, nice one, Jeff. Okay, so you've created a group on naked wines. Apology, I've missed it, and it's called Off-Piste. And why don't I? Well, if I click that, let me see if I can.
What happens?
And then I stick it in there. I hope if this is unsuitable content to everyone, I apologize. Anyway, so I've just put it in the chat there from Jeff. I've
taken scam.
Yeah. You'll be signing up to Jeff's new club, and then it's a group on naked wines. And thank you, Jeff, for proposing that. Off piece is perfect. I really appreciate that. I've stuck it now into the chat. So what you do is you go click through to that, hopefully safely. But it's a naked wines link, and then you join the group. Nice one, good shout. And last wine, well, we've got two more because one is an anonymous attendee. So I'll ask. You mentioned about letting wine air. Then any rules of thumb? Same for white, red, or rosé. I think we've sort of gone over it then, that the white needs to
sort of covered it.
Yeah, red not too warm, and rosé as you like it, but probably more towards the fridge side of things. And last question we're going to take from Peter Venn: does Naked Wine sell any wines from the Finger Lakes? The answer is no, I'm afraid, not yet. And I can't end on a no answer. So Anita, do you think the Pinot Noir needs some aging? Yes. Or needs but can have it. And so when it ages, that Pinot Noir, you're going to lose some of the body and the concentration, and you'll get more of a suppleness. So the oak that I just mentioned and the concentration of fruit from the long ripening, they'll all just mellow down. And in about 3 years, that wine will look quite different. It will look savory, silky. It's mainly the mouthfeel that you'll notice the difference. It'll be supple and silky. It's good now, it's generous now, but in 3 years, it'll be, yeah, silky, lovely, lovely, creamy mouthfeel. Cool. Okay, well, everybody, thank you very, very much for attending, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was great crack. This was our penultimate September festival presentation. Next week, Matt and I will both be down in Canterbury West, Barham Court.
We're on safari, aren't we?
Yeah, we are hitting the road and into a vineyard.
It's in the road.
And
headscarves on.
Yeah. So nice one, Matt. Did you have a wine of the night? Dare we ask?
Yeah, well, that's one of the questions. I was going to end on that question as well. Ask you the same. My favorite wine of the night. So difficult with such a great selection. I think I've got it back in my glass. It's the Trees from Moldova. I just think that is just so much wine in the glass for that price, and just delicious, refreshing, lovely.
Same.
How about you?
Same. Well, actually, sorry, not to influence the vote that's just popped up on our screens, but I dare say yes, the same. That, as you say, it has everything you want in terms of generosity, body, texture, flavor, and then yeah, happy juice. I did not mean to influence the poll, so I'm going to vote for something else just to balance it out. Let me see what else.
Fixing the vote.
Yeah, I'm trying to just exactly. It's a big but anyway, it was a lovely evening. It was good to hang out and just taste nice wines from around the world, which is the joy of this thing, isn't it? You know, just it's geography and booze. You know, what a lovely vocation to have, travel and booze.
Yeah, but I hope I hope everyone joining tonight's really sort of found something within there that perhaps they hadn't expected, or it's given them the confidence to try something a bit different. I mean, that's what Naked Wines is really all about. It's about experimenting, looking for, there's lots of resources within Naked, isn't there, to help you find something a little bit different. I mean, it's not just tonight, but you can find that within, what all the other angels are saying or recommending. And so I really hope, people have found something a little bit different that perhaps they can enjoy in the future, introduce their friends to. Variety is the spice of life, and I think that going back to that question about changing things, and you have a good core of people you trust to make great wines for you, but it's always about sort of pushing the boundaries, experimenting, finding new stuff to get excited about.
Yeah, well, the runaway winner or runaway, they're all pretty even, but the Yamhill Carton Pinot Noir was right up there. Buret came strong as well, and Trees as the other. So anyway, great guys, thank you very much for participating. And if you're around next Tuesday, 8 o'clock, we'll be in Ingerlund tasting Ingerlish wines and sparkling wines with Charles and Ruth. Some beautiful, really beautiful wines there, and maybe a snippet of the vineyards. and then inside their fantastic English winery. So great. Have a good evening, everybody. Thanks for participating. See you soon. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.